Welcome to the Explainer Future Aviators. Listen, if you're a PPL student gearing up for that ground exam, you are in the exact right place. We're cutting right through the fluff today and diving straight into the high-yield aerodynamics you absolutely have to know to pass. No boring textbook droning, I promise. Just the pure, actionable physics of flight. So, over the next few minutes, we're going to unpack the exact physics of turning instability that examiners just love to throw at you. I know these concepts can sometimes feel like a giant alphabet soup of vectors and forces when you're just reading them off a page, right? But we're going to make them incredibly visual and honestly impossible to forget. By the time we wrap up, you'll be visualizing these forces every single time you sit in the cockpit. All right, Section 1, Aircraft Stability versus Instability. Let's get into it. Picture this. You're flying straight and level, having a great time, and suddenly, boom, a gust of wind hits you. How does the plane actually react? Well, examiners frequently test on a specific reaction known as the Dutch roll. Basically, a Dutch roll is a coupled lateral and directional oscillation. Now, what does that actually mean in plain English? Imagine your right wing gets pushed down by that gust. The aircraft naturally starts to slide sideways into the wind, which is a positive side slip. In a Dutch roll, the aircraft corrects the wing's lateral tilt before the nose even has a chance to realign with the wind. The result? The nose of your airplane traces this really dynamic figure-8 motion right on the horizon. Now, it's often dynamically stable, meaning it'll dampen out on its own eventually, but man, it can be really uncomfortable for your passengers. Now, what's super interesting is how we contrast that Dutch roll with spiral instability. This is a hugely tested concept. Aircraft manufacturers actually have to strike a compromise between these two things. Spiral instability happens when a plane has really strong static directional stability, meaning the nose desperately wants to point into the wind, but a comparatively weak dihedral effect, meaning those wings are pretty slow to return to level flight. Because a Dutch roll is just so nauseating, most modern training aircraft are actually designed with a tiny bit of spiral instability instead. So let's break down exactly how that spiral instability plays out, because understanding this chain reaction is pretty much a guaranteed point on your exam. A gust of wind drops a wing, which causes a side slip. Thanks to that strong directional stability, the tail immediately snaps the nose into the relative wind. But as the nose yaws, the wing on the outside of that turn is now moving through the air faster than the inside wing. And faster airflow means more lift, right? That extra lift on the outside wing causes this overbanking tendency. The bank gets steeper and steeper. The nose drops, and if you, the pilot, don't correct it, you're going to gradually accelerate into a really dangerous spiral dive. The fix is super easy, literally just level the wings, but you've got to be paying attention. Moving right along to Section 2, the physics of turning. Okay, so let's look at what actually happens when you turn the aircraft on purpose. When you're just flying straight and level, all of your lift is acting straight up, totally opposing gravity. But look at what happens when you bank. As you roll into a medium or steep turn, your total lift vector tilts. It literally splits into two distinct parts, a vertical component and a horizontal component. Notice how the vertical component of lift actually shrinks, while that new horizontal component grows. So here is the absolute kicker. Your rudder does not steer the plane like a boat. This is such a classic trick question on the PPL exam. It's actually the horizontal component of lift, which acts as centripetal force, that actively pulls the aircraft off a straight flight path and forces it to turn. Centrifugal force is just the equal and opposite reaction that feels like it's pulling you to the outside of the turn. So just remember, we bank the airplane specifically to create that horizontal lift. But here is where the physics literally demand a response from you. Because banking the airplane tilts your total lift, your effective vertical lift drops. If you sit there and do nothing, gravity wins, and you're going to lose altitude. To compensate for that lost vertical lift, you have to pull back on the yoke to increase your angle of attack. But wait, it doesn't stop there. Increasing your angle of attack creates more induced drag, so to maintain altitude without bleeding off airspeed, you've also got to add power. Bank, back pressure, power. That right there is the holy trinity of a perfect, level, steep turn. Which brings us to Section 3, slipping versus stitting. We've all heard our instructors yelling, "Step on the ball," right? Well, let's look at the actual aerodynamics of why coordination matters so much. You really want to mentally bookmark this concept for your exam because it perfectly breaks down that critical imbalance between centrifugal force and the horizontal component of lift. In a perfectly coordinated turn, these two forces are locked in a dead tie. The horizontal lift pulling you in perfectly matches the horizontal force pushing you out. But the second your rudder inputs don't match your bank angle, one of those forces is going to take over. Let's clearly define them. In a slipping turn, your aircraft has way too much bank for the rate of turn. Your horizontal lift is totally overpowering the centrifugal force, and the aircraft literally slips down toward the inside of the turn. On the flip side, in a skidding turn, your rate of turn is way too high for your bank angle, usually because you're just stepping on the rudder too hard. In this case, centrifugal force overpowers horizontal lift, and the aircraft skids toward the outside of the turn. It's exactly like a car taking a corner too fast on a really icy road. And remember, skids are incredibly dangerous close to the ground because they can quickly lead to an abrupt spin.
Okay, time for a super quick break from all that intense physics. I actually told my flight instructor a joke about an uncoordinated turn yesterday, but it slipped his mind, and he skidded right past the punchline. Yeah, I know.
Terrible dad jokes aside, always coordinate your turns by keeping that inclinometer ball perfectly centered. Seriously, if you understand how horizontal lift pulls you through a turn and how spiral instability can sneak up on you, you are absolutely going to crush that ground exam. If this explainer helped clear things up for you today, please do drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out and lets us make more PPL explainers to get you test ready.
So, as you visualize your next flight lesson, I want you to ask yourself, next time you throw the plane into a steep bank and you feel that heavy weight drop into your seat, do you truly feel the invisible battle between centrifugal force and lift happening right there at your fingertips? Because you're not just moving a control column, you are literally bending the forces of nature to your will. Good luck on the exam, everyone, and happy flying.